Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'd like to introduce Sergeant Kevin Lamy and his associate. They're going to do a presentation on active shooter and its defense. So, and after the presentation, please feel free to have a brief period of question answers.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sergeant Kevin Lamy. I'm with the Bridgewater Police Department for about 21 years now. I work in our traffic safety unit, but I've also worked for probably about 18 years in our firearms training unit. Can't say I'm a total expert on active shooters, but I've been going out throughout the community doing this presentation. I want you guys to feel involved. If you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll do our best to answer that. Along with me, I brought Detective Michael Coletta, who also teaches firearms for a long time with me. We work very well together. Also very much open to answering questions. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, again, like Sergeant Lamy said, my name is Detective Coletta. I've been with the police department now for 12 years. Again, with Sergeant Lamy, I work in the firearms unit. We both have been to training out in New Mexico related to detecting bombs and dealing with terrorism situations. Before that, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years with a deployment to Iraq, so I have a little bit of experience in dealing with some of these stressful situations. Again, you know, it's great that you guys are here understanding that it's not a great topic to really listen to or something that's exciting and fun, obviously. It's sad, but unfortunately it's the world we live in, and we commend you for being here and willing to learn and listen as we try to you know, protect you guys and protect our community. It's great that you're here and willing to do this.
I threw up our contact information. If you ever have any questions outside of here, don't hesitate to give us a call. If you don't jot it down today, Paul has my contact information, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in the future as well. Okay? Just going to go over a couple goals, things that we're looking to get out of this, things that we're hoping that you learn. The main goal of the training is to keep you guys safe, to give you the knowledge that will help bring the safety to you. I'm going to go over defining an active shooter. I'm going to do a little review on past incidents. The main reason of that is not to scare you, but it is to bring the attention that it can happen anywhere. It's happened throughout the United States. We've had incidents right here in the state of New Jersey. We're going to try and teach you how to help yourself should you be faced with something like this. That is referred to as react, escape, survive. We're then going to go through a little bit of threat recognition. My presentation, or the presentation that we normally do, is normally geared toward the workplace. So I don't want you to be focused on this can only happen here. I want you to bring this back to wherever you may work as well, because this can affect you anywhere. It's not only in religious facilities. We're also going to touch on what you should expect if there is ever an incident at the temple and or your place of employment, what you should expect from us. And we'll go into that a little bit more in depth later, but we're not going to come in here nice. We're going to come in here all business, and we're probably going to be yelling, we're going to be shouting orders, and I want you to be aware of that now and not think that in any way we're disrespecting you come said incident. We'll also go over, and I know there has been a security assessment done here, so we're not going to touch on that as much. If you do want another security assessment, I can get Paul in contact with a person that would be doing that. Next thing we're going to go into is anyone here. Can anyone here tell me exactly what you or how you would define an active shooter incident?
Would it be, I can take a stab at it. Would
Go
it be
ahead.
somebody taking coming in with the intent to cause harm and then still being there when somebody comes in response, such as yourselves?
Very close, very close. And I'm just going to throw up how the U.S. government has defined it. It is one or more individuals actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. This definition changed probably about 5 or 6 years ago. It had been defined as an individual that enters a confined area, such as this building. After we've seen incidents like Las Vegas, they changed that definition to merely killing people in a populated area. The big difference between an active shooter and another act of violent crime, such as merely a homicide, is that an active shooter intends to injure and kill as many people as possible. They're going to places that have people confined together, such as a religious facility like this, such as a concert venue, such as the Pulse nightclub, somewhere where there's a lot of people and they can do a lot of damage in one spot. Can anyone tell us what the first incident was that brought people's attention to an active shooter?
The school shooting in Connecticut.
It's actually back further than that.
Columbine?
Columbine.
Yep.
We're going to go back even further than Columbine, and we're going to go back to 1966. This incident occurred at the University of Texas. Subject killed his mother and wife, and then went to the University of Texas, where he killed 14 additional people. It was referred to as the Texas Tower shooter. Subject climbed to the top of a 28-story tower and was actually shooting people from that elevated location. He ended up getting stopped by a police officer. I think it was about 2.5 hours into the killing situation. The next one, you mentioned, Columbine. Columbine is what changed how we respond and how we react back to shooters. Prior to Columbine, basically how we handled it is our officers responded and our officers set up a perimeter. They set up that perimeter and they waited till a SWAT team got there. The problem we found with that is that the killing was still going on as we were sitting outside doing nothing. We were waiting for that SWAT team to assemble. And several more people than necessary lost their lives at Columbine. That has since changed the way that police officers respond. We now respond to the scene and we go in immediately. We are going in, we are trying to stop that killing immediately. There is no longer waiting. Once again, Columbine changed how law enforcement responds from here on. And we continue to build on that. We continue to train. We train annually to respond to an active shooter scenario. Another thing I want to touch on. We said this started back in 1966 when the first incident took place. From that point on, it has continued to grow. There has been more and more incidents. This is a chart that I took out of an FBI study that shows the increase. In 2017, there was 30 incidents. In 2018, which isn't depicted on this chart, there was 27 incidents. It is remaining high. 2019, they haven't completely released the statistics yet, but I'm going to guess it's right there with 2017 and 18. This chart again is taken from the FBI report and depicts incidents that took place in 2016 and 17. The incidents occurred in 21 different states. You can see it is not one set portion of the country. It is everywhere. In a little while, we're going to touch on an incident that just took place in Jersey City in 2019. It's right here in New Jersey. Once again, we are not bringing this to scare you in any way. We're bringing this to bring attention to it and to realize that it can happen. An active shooter event occurs roughly every 3 months in the United States. That rate, as you saw from the previous charts, has been accelerating. The deadliest incident that occurred in the United States, I touched on a little while ago. That was the Route 91 Harvest Festival in Las Vegas. The shooter entered, oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank, the Mandalay Bay Hotel, took a position in an elevated room and was shooting down on a crowd of people that were attending a country concert. His only intent was to kill and harm people. 58 people lost their lives that day. 489 were wounded. It's a concert, it's not a religious facility, but it is not much different. We're going to go into specific religious facility incidents in a few minutes. Prior to Las Vegas, you had the Pulse nightclub that occurred on June 12th of 2016. 49 people were killed and 58 were wounded in that. Prior to that, I'm also going to just touch on, you had Virginia Tech, which was a student that entered into the school, killed 32 people and wounded 17. These incidents don't only occur at nightclubs, at concerts, at religious facilities, at schools. They can occur anywhere. They can occur at your place of business. As I said, when I come out and do this presentation, I'm normally doing it in businesses, bringing people's attention to that and things you can look for different actions from employees, someone that might not be acting just right. Here I'm going to show it how it applies to you. How many people here have heard of incidents taking place in religious facilities? How many people heard of incidents taking place in a Sikh temple? Okay. First one I'm going to go over was just recently, and I'm going over them recent to past. The West Freeway Church of Christ in Texas. That was just recently in 2019, December 29th. That was a subject that entered into the church wearing a fake beard and a wig, carrying a rifle. He had a long coat on. That church had a security staff very similar to what you have here. Their security staff was armed. Unfortunately, you can't do that in the state of New Jersey. I wish you could. But they recognized this subject. They saw him come in. They saw him sit in one of the back pews. They monitored him, and once he finally got up, they were able to intervene. They limited that killing to, I believe it was just 2 people and the suspect. Another one, a little closer to home. Tree of Life, a Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh, PA. Subject entered there with a rifle and 3 handguns. 11 people were killed and 6 were wounded. A Baptist church, First Baptist Church, this occurred in 2017. They're only about a year apart here. 26 people killed and 20 wounded. Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in 2015. That was in Charleston, South Carolina. 9 people killed. And then finally, we just touched upon the Sikh temple in Wisconsin, where 6 people were killed. That subject was armed with a handgun. It can happen anywhere. And you're looking here, this is 5 different religions that were all affected. They're not picking just one.
Kevin, there was a mosque in New Zealand, probably a year ago or so, where 50 people were shot. And just last week in Germany, there was a shooting where somebody went into a hookah bar and shot 2 or 3 people, then went to another hookah bar and shot 5. And that was one of those white radical, right-wing radical.
Right, right. So I think what Paul's bringing up here, it's not only in the United States either. This is a phenomenon, I guess you could call it worldwide. It's happening everywhere. And I never, ever want you guys to become complacent in saying, Bridgewater's safe. And I like to think it is. We do a pretty good job. But it can happen anywhere. I feel like stepping out.
All right, we're going to go over just the profile of an active shooter and what a person that is willing to do this kind of damage looks like. So normally they're a psychopath, right? You're not dealing with a normal person. It's not, inherent for us to want to kill other human beings. A lot of times they see themselves as someone who was wronged, right, by a boss, like Kevin talked about, in the workplace, a spouse. Maybe they're upset at the police or something. Or even they're upset, they feel like they're upset at another religion, I guess, right, or ideology. I know someone touched on it before. There was a Sikh man killed after 9/11 because he was mistaken as a Muslim. So there you see someone, that person who killed him was upset and felt that he was wronged by Muslims and decided to go out and made a mistake. And even if the man was Muslim, obviously he doesn't deserve to be killed. But those are the type of people that you're dealing with. They justify what they're doing in their head as the right thing. They feel like it's like they're living their own little revolution or something. The attacks are often planned in detail. Las Vegas was, he did a great job planning that. I think he barricaded himself in the room and...
He barricaded himself in a room. He had cameras set up.
Right.
As you can see, he had 4 rifles and access to 23 other weapons. In reference to the planning, Jersey City. Who's familiar with the incident that recently took place in Jersey City?
Yeah.
That subject, or those 2 subjects, male and female subject, had this planned out. Fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, their plan was soiled by Detective Seals. That caused them to react, and more than likely is what brought them to that supermarket, rather than doing whatever else that they may have done.
Yeah, there's some speculation that there was I think a Jewish school nearby, that maybe that's what their target was. We don't know, but luckily their plan was ruined. So most of them that commit these crimes are males, but again, and like Sergeant Lamy just said, they don't have to be. They can be females, and it's just something as we go on to think about when you're here or in your workplace or in a public area. You've got to kind of learn to keep your eyes open, and everyone, not that you need to look at everyone with suspicion, but you need to be aware. And if something looks strange, and say, it's, that's a woman, she's probably not going to do. It's worth it to take a second look, and if it's necessary, let the authorities know.
So I'm just going to say, and we'll go into this a little bit more in depth, but if you see something suspicious, bring it to one of the people on your security team.
Right.
Let them discuss it. Let them decide whether they want to call us in. Don't hesitate. It's better to be safe than sorry.
So again, they come to the scene highly prepared. They're heavily armed. They have spare ammunition. They might be wearing body armor. They might have explosive devices. And you might not know that this is going to happen until it starts happening. You could see a visitor and maybe they don't look suspicious, and next thing you know, you start hearing gunfire, and you're seeing people, getting shot and going down. And it's your first indication. You didn't even have a chance to warn somebody. So the government, once all this kicked off and they realized that this is becoming a greater problem, Department of Homeland Security came up with some ideas, and basically why we're here, to go out there and teach other people how to protect themselves. And one of those is run, hide, and fight. So that's the that was the recommended
Procedure.
right, to react. They modified it to react, escape, survive. So as time went on, they realized that it needed to be tweaked a little bit. So react. You're here, you're in your place of business, and there's an active shooter. Do not freeze. That's going to be the natural human response, but you need to move. If you're in an area where you could get out of the building, then get out. If there's an area where you could lock yourself in a room, lock yourself in a room, move away from those gunshots, and trust your instincts. So if you're in a building and you're hearing some loud sounds that sound like gunshots, maybe you don't see it, it probably is. If it's a sound you're not familiar with and it's loud and you hear people screaming, it's probably, unfortunately, what you think it is.
Two incidents I want to touch on, and I believe it was Salt Lake City. The Trolley Square Mall shooting. After the incident took place, they interviewed some of the people that were at the mall, and they said, you know what, yeah, I heard those noises. It couldn't be shooting, though. That can't happen here. I thought it was construction or something, and it wasn't. It was the shooter that actually came in and was shooting. In Aurora, you had the movie theater where they were showing the, what was it, Batman?
Dark Knight Rises.
Yes, Batman The Dark Knight Rises. A shooter actually entered the movie theater. He was throwing tear gas. People were thinking that it was special effects because it was the first night that it was being released. The point I'm trying to bring up is that if something causes the hair on the back of your neck to stand up and say something isn't right here, you know what? Take yourself out of that situation. Move to a spot where you don't hear these noises, that you know is safe. And reevaluate. It's better to be safe than sorry.
So next, after react, is escape. So again, if your first reaction is to run and get out, that's exactly what they're saying to do. Have an escape route and a plan in mind. So again, and this is why we're here, and this is, you guys are a proactive community and you're thinking about this ahead of time, coming up with plans. What if it does happen here? What are we going to do? And I know Paul with his security team has talked about this and are trying to pass this on to the rest of the congregation. If you can, help others escape. If possible, obviously you're going to grab kids, women and children, and you're going to get them to safety. Don't worry about your belongings, obviously, just like a fire, you want to get out.
One thing I want to touch on with that too, everybody nowadays, myself included, is connected to their cell phone. Dump your cell phone. You can replace it. You can buy a new one. You don't need, if you decide that I have to hide at this point, you don't need that cell phone ringing, saying, hey, I heard something's going on at the Sikh temple in Bridgewater. Are you okay? Because that's going to bring that attention to you.
If you can, prevent individuals from entering an area where the active shooter may be. So obviously, if you're able to make it outside and someone's like, hey, I want to go inside, see what's going on. What is it? No. We don't. You don't want more victims. Get out and get away from the building as fast as possible. This comes into play more now when the police are arriving, but if you're pouring out and police are showing up, keep your hands visible. We don't know who the active shooter is. The active shooter could be someone who made themselves look like a Sikh. Or if you're in a business, they look like they belong in that business. We don't know. So we need to make sure that we see everyone's hands as they're coming out, and there's going to be a lot of, God forbid it happens, wherever you are, the response from the police community is going to be overwhelming. You're going to have officers from the entire county, from around the state and federal agencies pouring in here. And they will be here. As more show up, they'll be here to direct you to a different area to get you back to your families.
In reference to that, once again, showing that it can happen around here, we had an incident of a suspected shooting at the mall where we called in people to assist us. We had people as far as East Rutherford, out near the Meadowlands, that came in to assist us. So you're gonna have people pouring in from all over, and once again, that's in town.
It's really the highest priority of law enforcement in situations like this, to protect life. And it's the worst call guys want to hear, but when they hear it, it's something that they all want to rush to and help if possible. So again, keep your hands visible. Follow the instructions of the police officers. Don't attempt to move wounded people. We're going to have we're trained in dealing with gunshot wounds, and there's going to be a lot of medical people on scene dealing with wounded people. God forbid there are wounded people. And when you are safe and you do have your phone, if you feel the need to call 911, then you call 911. A lot of times, if it's 10, 15 minutes after this, or even 5 minutes, I'm sure we're going to have, hundreds of 911 calls. And the third thing is survive. So you're stuck in the building, you can't escape, and your only reaction now is to survive. And one of those things might be hiding. Where's a good hiding place? You want to be out of view from the active shooter. You want to be someplace where there's some protection. And I think we get into this in another slide, but there's certain things like these partitions are great for hiding. Unfortunately, they're not going to stop a bullet. So again, you got to maybe think of something where there's a concrete wall, something that's a little thicker that maybe could protect you. And I know it's hard to think about, like planning for someone to be coming in and shooting at you, and you got to be thinking about, like, ahead of time when you come here on Sundays, where am I going to go if there's an active shooter? What it will stop a bullet? But it's something that down the road maybe will save lives.
I'm going to take it a step further and take it outside of the temple. You're out to a restaurant to eat with your family. So often you sit down at a table, and I came in through that door. Does anyone know another way out besides for that door that they just came in? Because I'm going to tell you, that's probably the door that the active shooter is going to use. That's the door the bad guy's coming in, so that's probably going to be blocked. Think about it. There's always an exit through a kitchen. Take your facility right here. If you were to run down to the kitchen, there's a door to get out, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's often where they bring the food and all in. Look for fire exits. And again, not trying to paranoid you, but look for other ways out so that you're safe with your family. Just something to think about.
If you can, prevent the active shooter from entering that hiding place. If you can lock the door, put furniture in front of it. And only hide while you plan your next movement. So say you come in this room and you can lock that door, but there's exits. Try to get out. Maybe move to that door over there. Look, maybe peek out, see if it's safe. Say, okay, I think this is safe. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get out this door. I'm gonna run into the woods if I have to, and hide till I see the police start showing up. But try to remove yourself as far away from the situation as possible.
That's one thing that's never sat right with me, and I'm sure Detective Coletta would agree with me. I'm not a big fan of hiding. I'm not a big fan of just hunkering down and not moving. If I'm going to hide, I'm hiding because that threat is near, and I'm planning my next move. I'm not going to just hide there until the police come. My opinion.
So I started to talk about this, concealment versus cover. So concealment is something that, again, like these partitions, where you could hide behind and the shooter might not be able to see you. But it is not cover. It's a bullet's going to be able to go through. It's not going to stop the active shooter or the weapons that he has. Cover, on the other hand, will hopefully stop a bullet. At least it will do more than this partition. So, the picture here, a brick wall, but something where where there is a concrete wall. Shooting from in here to the outside, a bullet might not go through. If it does, it might be fragmented and it's going to change direction. So you got to think about what are some good places and walls and areas where you can get some good cover as well as concealment, because that's what's ideal. Hidden and protected from the active shooter and his weapons.
If you have an office, a file cabinet filled with paperwork, paper, when it's all together, can become very dense, and is actually a pretty decent form of cover. If you look at like your kitchen, if you're behind a solid steel stove or something along those lines, that offers you a lot more than a sheetrock wall or one of these partitions.
Survive. If the active shooter is nearby, lock the door, like we talked about. Like Sergeant Lamy said, silence your cell phones. You want to be quiet. You don't want the active shooter to know you're there. From the studies that I've gone in the past and research into these active shooters in different situations, they keep on moving. They're looking for easy targets and easy victims. So if they come in here and it looks like no one's in here, they're not going to take the time to go through every little cubicle. They're going to go where they think there's more people gathered, where they hear people. So that's important. Any noise. Again, hide behind large items, cabinets, desks, and remain quiet. And fight. If you feel like your life is in imminent danger, attempt to disrupt the active shooter. So, again, you could do it by acting aggressively towards him, coming at them. And I know this is a scary thought when they've got a gun and you don't, but if this is your last defense, you've done all these other things, and now it's all about life preservation for yourself or for others or for your family. So if you have items to throw, fire extinguisher, whatever you have to distract that person, to injure them, to get them to turn away and maybe leave or go someplace else. Again, they want an easy fight. And unfortunately, at the end of this, a lot of times they end up taking their own lives. So they're not looking for a fight. The second the police show up, a lot of times they'll be found dead and they've taken their own lives. So put up a fight if that's your last defense.
In 2016 and 17, during the active shooters, civilians engaged in 10 of the incidents. Civilians, just like you, engaged 10 times. In 8 of those incidents, they ended the shooting. 80% of the time, once a civilian got involved, they ended the shooting themselves.
So again, that goes to show you that they're really not looking for a fight. They're looking to do harm and damage, but the second they get any resistance, they back away. And that was a big change in the federal government and what they were teaching. It's really encouraged more when there's no other options or you have the ability to go after this person. They encourage it because it really, in the end, could save your life and other lives.
We're now going to get into just what you should expect from us when we're coming in. Once again, when we come in, we're focused and it's all business. Our purpose is to stop the threat. It's to stop the shooter. It's to stop the killing. Oftentimes we're standing up here referring to shooting and someone with weapons. There's been many instances where they're armed with knives as well. So it's any type of weapon they're using. Officers will oftentimes, how we're trained is to go in with teams. Oftentimes a team's of 4, but again, if 2 people show up, 2 officers show up, and their backup is still a minute out, they might be entering into that building with 2. So you're not going to know how many officers are entering in. You'll see us wearing all types of different equipment. We'll have helmets, black uniforms, blue uniforms, uniforms like this. Some people might be in suits. Our detectives, when they come to work, they're coming in suits. So they will come out here with that suit on, throw a Kevlar or protective vest over top of it, and they're ready to fight. When Detective Coletta goes to work, he's wearing a suit. He's dressed in business attire, just like a lot of you would go to work with. Officers are going to be armed with a variety of different weapons. anywhere from rifles to shotguns, handguns. They might be using pepper spray, they might be using tear gas. There's a number of different things that we have in our arsenal to use. The last line there, they're gonna be shouting commands. When we come in here, and again, no disrespect, we're gonna be yelling. We're gonna be telling you what to do. We're gonna be saying, get on the ground, show me your hands. If that happens, I just ask that you listen to us. We're doing it for your good. You might get pushed down. You might get knocked down. You might get handcuffed. Until we understand what's going on and who the threat is, we have to do this.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be chaos in the beginning, and like I said, there's going to be a very large response. But our goal in the end is to preserve life and to try to stop the shooter. And again, that's our ultimate goal. And then this next slide goes into it, where initially we're not going to stop and help injured people. We might see some people with some gunshot wounds, but if we still hear the active shooter shooting, we can't stop to help anybody. We have to stop him before he kills or injures more people. So as the initial group comes in, and if the active shooter is stopped, even after then, the initial group that came in of officers, they're going to still be going through the building, making sure that there's no other shooters. We're going to start a search. The building's going to be searched probably 20 times in the next 10 hours to make sure that there's no bombs that he planted somewhere or hiding, suspects hiding somewhere. But with that said, once the scene becomes a little more stable, the secondary teams that are coming in are going to start first aid, and we're going to start taking care of those people that are injured.
There's many a new, again, this is an evolving process where we are always learning. They are now integrating in medical services that will be responding into the we refer to as the hot zone, where the shooting is taking place, that they will respond into the facility and start triaging people and getting them out. So it's ever evolving, and we're doing what is best for everybody as a whole. So.
Yeah, and again, you might be assembled out in the parking lot. You might be held in that area for a little bit because officers are going to start showing up. And if there's, again, a lot of confusion, what did you see inside? How many shooters did you see? What kind of weapons did they have? You're going to be getting asked these questions, so we know then what we're getting into. And maybe the officers that are outside questioning you are going to be communicating with us inside as we're going through the building.
Also, if you do get out, and you might have just touched on this, and I was zoning off there for a minute, but don't leave. Just hang here for a few, and again, get to a safe place. Yes, but we're going to want to talk to everybody. We're going to want to see what everybody saw for an evidentiary purpose as well.
So just a little bit on first aid. A lot of, obviously, there's gunshot wounds, and the biggest thing that happens is people will die from bleeding out. So there's just a couple different ways that if you need to, and maybe you're in an area where someone got shot, and you're waiting for the police to come in, the active shooter has moved to the other side of the building, you start rendering first aid to someone. Common sense stuff, direct pressure, elevate if it's a leg wound or whatever. Put pressure on it and elevate it.
In reference to this, I got to give Paul a lot of credit on this. I have been going out and presenting this for probably 5 or 6 years now. He is the first one that's ever come to me and asked me to look at set medical supplies that he's looking to purchase for the temple. That's way far advanced than I've ever seen before, and I commend him on that. These are things that it's the equipment that I'm carrying with me when I go out on the road that he's looking to bring in here and have for you guys. So.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, tourniquets, quick clot, there's a lot of simple things out there that are great life-saving tools in situations like this. And that's really the best defense in saving lives as far as you guys. Obviously, you're not going to be armed. You don't have guns. So the best thing you can do, if you're able to, is if someone's wounded, have the ability to stop the bleeding. or to put a tourniquet on and save that person's life. And again, we touched on this already, but how to react when we arrive. Remain calm. It's going to be stressful. Breathe. Know that when we're showing up, we're going to do our very best to keep you guys safe and to go in there and to deal with the issues. Follow the instructions. Put down any items. Like we said, keep your hands up. Put down any items too. Bags.
Don't come out like this. Put the cell phone away.
Put the cell phone
I
away.
got to comment on that a lot, just because everybody nowadays, and you can see mine sitting right out here as well, everybody has a cell phone. Come out, fingers spread, so we can see you.
Avoid pointing, screaming, or yelling. So obviously, if you have pertinent information, try to get an officer's attention and pass it on. But we know there's someone in there, and we know what we have to do. Screaming and yelling isn't going to help the situation. It's just going to create more confusion. Again, I know this is going to be stressful. Me and Sergeant Lamy both have been in stressful situations, and it's not easy. And it's not something that you want to be a part of, and it's not something that you truly, really are prepared for. But again, you guys are taking the right step and trying to be prepared. God forbid something does happen. If you do call 911, some things that you want to tell that 911 operator. Location of the active shooter. Number of shooters, if you know. Name of the shooter. So there's been plenty of instances where in workplaces where they know who's doing this. Or the shooting in Connecticut where I think his mother was a teacher at the school.
Yeah.
So, like someone might have recognized him. Physical description. Number and type of weapons. If you're able to see that, if he's carrying a rifle or a handgun. Most people know the difference between those two things. We're not looking
Long is small.
Right. We're not looking for brand names and caliber, obviously, but just some sort of description and a number of potential victims, so we know what we need as far as resources in getting medical people out here and setting up triage and getting them to hospitals. Because if it's a lot of people, this is going to be. It's going to be chaotic, but there's going to be people going everywhere. They're going to be going to Morristown.
Multiple hospitals.
Right, multiple hospitals. They're going to be going to Robert Wood, New Brunswick. They might be getting flown to Newark.
So multiple people don't need to call 911. I'm assuming if somebody is close to me is calling.
Yeah,
enough,
if you know.
If you know that the person next to you is calling, don't bother.
That's good enough. Yeah.
If you are unsure whether anyone called, call. It's better to be safe than sorry.
That is correct.
I'm going to say that a lot.
So some indicators of possible violence, increased use of alcohol and illegal drugs. So,
This isn't necessarily only for here.
right, that's what I was just
And
going to say.
I was going to take this slide out, and I'm cutting you
No,
off.
no, that's all right.
I was going to take it out, and then I said, I think I should leave it in because, again, I don't want this to only apply to here. I want you to take this with you. So if you happen to be going to work and you see some of these, it might spark a little flag.
Just things where people you see kind of someone starts spiraling. And it's like, this guy never used to drink, or we talked about drugs, but I just feel like something's off. He's coming in, he smells like alcohol, he's getting drunk more. Maybe there's something going on at home that's kind of causing him to spiral out a little bit. An increase in absenteeism, where they're not showing up to work. A decrease in hygiene, and they seem depressed and there's withdrawal. All signs of different things that, could cause people to start, again, spiraling. Increased severe mood swings. Very emotional responses. You ask them how they're doing, and they snap for no reason at you. I'm doing fine. It's like, I just asked how your weekend was. Again, with that, explosive outbursts of anger or rage. Maybe all of a sudden they're starting to talk about a different ethnic group, and like you thought you knew the guy, and next thing you know, he's talking about how he can't stand the Jews, or he can't stand this ethnic group, or this nationality, or this religion.
Just going into to people that wrong them.
Right.
So that's a very, very common indicator.
Someone who's paranoid, everyone is against me, right? Like, it seems like this guy's making it sound like that everybody is against him. The world, his friends, his family, seems like him versus everybody. Talks about problems at home, and a lot of times that, things at home, financial difficulties, problems with your marriage, all these things are indicators of what could cause someone to kind of lose it and snap. And the reason why these are on here is that a lot of these people who committed these atrocities had these issues.
We learn from the past experiences.
Right.
The past experiences are studied in depth, and this is what the experts are coming up with.
So preventing the active shooter, again, is recognizing the potential violence, which you guys have done by having us here. And Sergeant Lamy said this before, if you feel something is off, something suspicious, notify your security staff. And if they think something's really off, they can notify us. On Sundays, you've got an officer outside for 4 hours. You could tell him. That's what we're here for. And if you think there's an immediate threat, you don't waste any time and call 911. And we'll be up here. And be a leader. Train, be aware of your surroundings, and prepare. You guys have some great leaders here who are trying to make sure that your community is prepared. And it's not an easy thing, but it's necessary, unfortunately. It's necessary,
Absolutely.
and you guys are taking the right step.
I give you a lot of credit.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any questions of us?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
First a comment and then a question. What happens here for 30 times a year, it doesn't happen, for example, country like India only once in 20 years.
Mhm.
That was Taj Mahal Hotel. And you can see in a lot of Scandinavian countries, nothing happens.
Right?
It is, the root cause of the problem is guns are available easily, which everybody recognizes.
And again, we can have this conversation for a long time.
Yeah. Is there a way to have a bullet detector for somebody entering the place?
You could have a metal detector, which is going to.
Metal, of course, everybody is wearing here,
Of course,
jewelry
of
and metal,
There's
metals are there.
nothing to detect bullets. You can get into some very costly equipment like they have at airports that detect explosives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's such minimal gunpowder in a bullet, and it's contained within, that there's nothing to detect that.
No, but the guy who's going to shoot, he's going to have a lot of bullets.
It's gonna have a lot of bullets, but if you think about it, a bullet is a projectile with a propellant within a casing. That is packed somewhere else at a factory. So there's no explosives on the outside, so that detection equipment isn't going to sense that. So there's nothing that I know of that you'd be able to get like that. Anything is going to be a metal detector that is going to detect something larger like a weapon. And
Even with all the money airports spend, I hate to say it, but I've gone on trips where I've come home and I've had bullets in my bag, and TSA did not pick up on it.
Right. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Kevin and Michael, for this excellent presentation.
Absolutely.
It was very informative, and we are grateful for that.
Thank you.
Couple of questions, they may be related. One is, if we evacuate these buildings and we get out through these doors or something, we're out in the open.
You
There's
are.
no place to hide there unless you climb up the hill and hide behind a tree or something. What protection do we have other than hoping that the shooter won't come after us? He'll be too busy, and knowing that these things only last 8 to 10 minutes on an average.
That's kind of a loaded question. And how I'm going to answer it is, if the active shooter is in here, he's looking for a concentration of people. By you running out that door and scattering, I wouldn't stop in the parking lot. I probably wouldn't climb up the hill. I'd probably go down the hill and out towards the highway. I'd hide behind cars. I'd hide behind trees. You have to, you can't move the place of your temple. You can't move the location. It's already here. It's not, from a security standpoint, it's not in a prime location. But you have to use what you have. So if I can get out here, and I can get amongst the cars, and I could run between the cars, and get out to that side of the parking lot, and get out to Washington Valley Road or 78, that's what I'm gonna do.
The idea behind that is you have to disperse,
Correct.
right, disperse in multiple locations.
Yes.
So you're not concentrated in one building. Right,
Correct.
even now, if we're here, this is still a concentration of high number of people in a
Absolutely.
small area. So
And-
you have to
and-
disperse.
And the thought is, Paul, is that hopefully if this won't last long, like you said, 8 to 10 minutes, you know, Bridgewater, relatively speaking, I mean, we're a big town, we're not that big. We're gonna get here pretty fast. So you're looking to buy time. You're not looking to, like, this guy's gonna be following you through the woods. You just need a couple minutes, hopefully, till we get here and we stop the shooting.
Go ahead.
The second question, we've been kind of wrestling with the thought of doing an emergency evacuation drill. And I know there's pros and cons of it. Pro is that people will be knowledgeable and trained and know how to react and where to get out. But the cons would be scaring a lot of people, and they may feel it's not unnecessary. And a lot of people have the attitude, well, it may happen somewhere else, but it's never gonna happen here. How do we overcome, and if you can talk about pros and cons of that?
That's gonna be a tough one. Yes, you should drill, but what are you gonna drill for? Are you drilling for an active shooter? Now you gotta, find a specific spot. Is the active shooter in this room? Is it in the main temple hall? Is it down in the cafeteria? Where am I gonna run my drill for? And
The only thing, I would say, the only drill you probably could do is a lockdown drill. Do you have an intercom system throughout the whole building?
do you have intercoms throughout the?
We do, but I don't think it's quite working properly.
I mean, the only thing you do is what they do in the schools, where if you call for a lockdown drill, and just walking up here, when we walked in, there was people in the hallways and in open areas. If people, were willing to participate, you do a lockdown drill every once in a while, where everyone gets into a room as fast as
Shelters.
possible and shelters in place and locks the door. Again, we just talked, though, that's not always the perfect response to an active shooter, but it is a help, getting into a room and locking a door. I really haven't found any instances where an active shooter has broken down a door.
No. They're moving on to the open room.
Right.
I'm still stuck on, I'd have to research drills for active shooters. I've never been involved in one. But again, a fire drill, you run a fire drill, everybody moves outside, and now they're outside of the structure that's burning. If you do an active shooter drill, are you gonna have your members running all the way down to the highway? Are you gonna have your members running and hiding in the woods? I don't know if I'd go that far. I think you're better off doing training such as this, wherein I'll come in once a year and do this. I have no issues doing that, but letting people know that it's reality, and you don't wanna be a sitting target, you wanna get out.
Yeah, and this is basically the drill, Paul. I mean, like Sergeant Lamy said, where you guys are now gonna go home and you're gonna think about this, and you can pass it to your families, and you can pass it to your kids. You tell your children, hey, when I say this is happening, like, you don't have to go into great detail, but I'm sure, Sergeant Lamy has done this with his boys already, where, hey, when Daddy says this, you guys need to listen, and you need to follow me. And that's the drill, just mentally preparing for it.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have a lot of elderly community, as you can tell.
Yeah,
right.
Very people who have difficulty walking, a lot of handicaps. What do you recommend? I mean, you can't run and get them out as quickly. What do you recommend for that? Because there's a large elderly community.
Move as fast as you can, safely.
And if you can't get out, again, like we said, kind of like what a lockdown drill would be, find a room and lock the door.
So for elderly, it's
Yeah.
probably better to do the lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Yeah.
can't get them out and they're in an open area,
Get
find
them into a place of hiding
Right.
best you can.
as best you can.
But there's no fix for that. You're not gonna get 100 wheelchairs here, and then it's gonna take time to get people into a wheelchair, someone to wheel them out. You move as fast as you can and try and disperse. There's no perfect answer for that. Yes, sir.
How's the technology at the control room? If I call 911, can you locate me, or I still have to tell where I am?
When you call 911,
Because when we call 911, we had situation, somebody getting sick,
Mhm.
Martinsville shows up first, then the Bridgewater. Like,
what do you mean Martinsville?
Their ambulance.
Correct.
So if I call 911, I'm telling my location, can you locate me? Where is the call coming from?
I'm
From
gonna
myself?
answer your question with a question.
Okay.
Are you calling from a cell phone, or are you calling from a landline in the building?
The landlines are connected, the cell.
Okay, landlines, definitely connected.
Correct.
Cell phone, it pings a location off of the towers and gives us a rough estimate of where you are. A spot like this, if you're calling up and you're saying, I have a sick person, I would absolutely say at the sick temple. You're so close to the highway, there's a number of other things around here where a location could get mistaken, but it will give us a geographical area of where you could be located.
So should we have a button installed somewhere so we can press it for instant to Bridgewater?
Do you have an alarm system set up in here?
Yeah, I think it's not working that great. I was
Okay.
here Friday evening, it was beeping, it was not, it's off.
You can install a panic alarm through your alarm system,
Right.
but once again, where are you going to put this button?
6 feet high somewhere, so.
Where though? Because now, if a threat comes in, rather than picking up your cell phone, which you probably have on you all the time and calling 911, you have to get to that button to push the button.
Unless
That
you have
button-
someone, while people are here, always next to that button, it's not, you're better off just calling 911. But it's a great idea if you do. Maybe you have someone who's, while there's a lot of people here, keep someone next to it and.
If you call Uber, they exactly get to you exactly where you are. So why can't police do the same? You call Uber, they get you.
Uber has more money than we do on
Uber is utilizing the GPS in your phone. When you call 911, it's going to a cell tower. That is not connecting the GPS location of your phone to the cell tower. It's triangulating you through different cell towers to get a rough idea of where your location is. There is systems out there that they're trying to change that and have the 911 system hooked up to GPS. We're not there yet.
What's the issue? That you were to call 911, but you wouldn't be able to talk?
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
No, I was just saying that I should just say active shooter and Sikh temple, 9.
No, we would know exactly, that'd be enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as you say Sikh temple,
You say Sikh temple, and you can say Sikh temple, and, I mean, you don't even have to say active shooter. Like, they'll probably get the point. You could say something bad's happening. And especially,
coming.
right, in a facility like this, that's not a normal call. We're coming.
Thank you, that was,
absolutely.
thanks for your time, thanks for coming.
Of course,
Thank
of
you very
course.
much.
Yeah.
Does it make difference like then to keep the South Brunswick Township number, police number, instead of calling 911 to get better fast response?
To call,
Like if for such kind of emergency, if we save number, like if I'm going in my township, if I find some accident or something, they always prefer call local township.
Oh, no, not 911.
911.
Active is 911.
911.
Definitely.
Yeah,
No question about that.
yeah.
So,
Thank you, officer.
absolutely. Anyone else?
Thank you so much.
We'll be here for a few. If you want to talk to us, come on up.
Actually, I do have a question.
Thank you, that was really great.
If a response were to happen,
Yes.
you'd be coming in, they'd be confused.